Hey everybody, Mike here. Welcome to part 2 of our interview with Joe Hunter, where we talk a lot about Kickstarter and learn a little bit about the game. I think I started asking him the same questions over and over again, either in part 2 or part 3. We'll see when they're all posted. As usual, please like, subscribe, share the video. I really want to get this series of videos out where I'm helping small creators learn from each other and get some publicity, but I need some likes, I need some subscribes. So have a great day. I hope you enjoyed part 2 of 3 of our interview with Joe Hunter. Let's go back to the Kickstarter. How did you start? How did you grow your audience? Did you guys have a mailing list, a website? Did you just use social media? Did you do anything to grow your audience before, during the Kickstarter?
It was, I think we got the website fully up with a mailing list 2 months prior to the Kickstarter. It might have been a little bit tighter than that. But we made our major push during the Kickstarter. Kickstarter is fantastic for people finding your product. That's another thing I learned from doing the Kickstarter and reading about stuff online. So that was really helpful. We had a couple people on the mailing list, and we just did a round of Facebook ads, but I think more importantly, got some YouTubers that do videos related to a little bit more of the setting side. And we got a lot of pull from them. So if you're gonna launch a project, I suggest finding YouTubers that are willing to throw up some advertisements and enjoy what you're working on.
How did you find them?
Just people we already watched, and then a little bit of searching. It's a pretty tight-knit community, so sure. Just typing in like RPG review and then finding everyone who's reviewed that RPG, usually with the bigger ones like D&D. So that's one thing we did. Another one is just like how to role play videos and tips videos, stuff like that. And you just sent people emails, and some of them were kind enough to look at your product and talk about it? Yeah, the power of just asking people is very strong. It's just a numbers game, really, because some people won't even read it, I'm pretty sure, and then other people got really, really excited, more excited than we thought they would be about, especially back in those days when it was not a well-formatted, pretty-looking document, what we were putting out. One of the things that I noticed about the game is that it's classless. It comes from playing so many RPGs with classes, and it's a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, it's a pros and cons, because the nice thing about classes is it's really easy to fall into that archetype and stick with it, and whatever you do that's slightly outside of your class is sort of interesting flavor. But from a complete roleplay perspective, we always thought that was a little bit limiting. Who doesn't want to be Jackie Chan and also have a huge machine gun? I mean, so stuff like that always seemed a little bit untenable with class-based systems, and that's why we very, very early decided no classes. It'll all just be ability trees, and that's how you'll progress. The other thing I noticed is it's pretty easy to die. And I don't know if die is the right word. But you know, I've only glanced at the beta rules, but it seems like if you get in a fight, you're going to be in trouble in your game. Yeah, so that is another thing with a lot of RPGs, that you got huge health pools, combat goes on for a long time. Even if you strategize, you're still having to hit someone 3, 4, 5 times before they go down. And if it's a boss, it's also going to be a longer struggle. So we wanted to have something that was very fast-paced and deadly as far as combat. And the best way we found to do that is just say, you don't have a lot of health. If someone in real life gets shot with a gun, they're probably going down. If you get shot 2 or 3 times, you're almost definitely going down. So that's how we approached it and tried to balance everything out. And then we found that dying all the time is really bad. So we actually put in a new system called the Die Hard system, where if you were to die, you can instead take a permanent flaw. So one of them is you lose an arm, you lose a leg, you become deaf or blind in one eye. So stuff like that, stuff to give your character a setback, but still allow the player to decide, no, I really like my character. I don't want them to die just because they made a really bad decision and tried to set off a room full of dynamite with a lighter or whatever it is. So I'll take the penalty, but I want them to stay alive.
Sure. But back to the Kickstarter, you guys looks like you did a lot of updates and that kind of stuff. And I was looking at your different social media. How often do you try to communicate and stay in touch even now after the Kickstarter? How active is your social media, and do you think that that's an important part of the process?
So as far as Kickstarter itself, we try and do monthly updates. Anything more, I think the importance of the updates can wane when you're doing that sort of stuff, but definitely monthly updates. We want to keep everyone in the loop on what's going on. It's actually on my to-do list to put out an update tomorrow.
Yeah.
So with Kickstarter around there, social media, I'm not a huge social media user myself, and I've been the one in charge of the social media. So my suggestion to people would be to definitely keep up on that. I think even posting every day on social media, like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of those works really well. I am more of a once a week person, so it's a place of improvement for sure, and it's very important for getting new people just to know about the product, because that's the biggest struggle, is just finding the audience and getting them to know.
I noticed you have some actual play videos on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Do you think that the YouTube videos you did during Kickstarter were helpful to you as well?
Yeah, I think there were definitely people. I mean, I haven't talked to anyone for sure, but I know the stats on those videos. So I know at least a couple dozen people watched all the way through, and I'm hoping that that is what swayed them to come on board and back us. So I think the actual play videos and the how to make a character and just any overview is really helpful. That's one of the first things I look for whenever I'm going to back a Kickstarter, is where's the shortest snippet explaining how this game actually works.
Sure. How did you decide the design and the layout of your Kickstarter page? Did you, like Stonemeyer Games has some really good advice on how to run Kickstarters, and there's Facebook groups on how to run Kickstarters. Did you guys do a lot of prep work before you really went live in terms of launching the page and all that?
Yeah, so what we did is we got a list together of what our favorite Kickstarters were as far as their layout and how they communicate everything. And then we took all those, made a doc of this is what we like, this is what we don't like, filled that out, and then made all the graphics and everything and all the text, and got that together, got that posted, got the video done, which I think is the most important part, is a short video for sure, even if it's just talking in front of a screen. And then after that, we went live and realized we had a bunch of typos, so that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's hard, right? I mean, I've been a professional communicator on and off in my career for a couple of decades, and I write stuff and I read it and I'm like, holy mackerel, I put that on the internet? I can't believe I did that, right? Especially because I'm kind of casual now that I'm not being paid to do it. I'm a little bit more casual about it, I think. Did you have artists when you launched the website? And was that art on the Kickstarter page right away? Sorry, the Kickstarter page, not the website.
Yeah, I mean, yes to both. So that's what the original pool of money that all of us put in was for. So we found a couple artists and got some good art together, and that's what's available on the Kickstarter page and also what we've posted over to our website.
Okay. Do you expect, once it's in production, to sell it on drive-through or someplace else? How do you expect to continue to sell this product going forward?
So what we're probably going to do is have it available on our site, go through physical distributors, which pretty much all of them now seem to also do PDFs, and then also on drive-through. So we're just trying to
put it everywhere. I really want to get it into game shops because that's how I used to find all the games that I bought, was walk into a game shop and actually look through the book. I think that's a very important experience, and hopefully we'll be able to convince all the game shops all over the world to carry at least 1 or 2 books.
I assume you'd have to work with a distributor for the most part to do that. Have you all started to figure out how to work with a distributor at this point already?
Yeah, so I've been emailing distributors probably around the last month, and I'll admit that that's one of the areas that I had zero experience in, and a lot of distributors have been very kind in saying, that's not exactly how this works, this is how that works, and sort of talking me through a little bit of the process. So we're hoping to work with quite a few distributors. And
I'm interested in that because you've talked about reaching out to artists, to YouTube people, to distributors. Well, I think one of the fears of every creator is imposter syndrome, right? Mm-hmm. Who am I to put some out new game? Who am I to ask a YouTube person that has thousands of followers to talk about my product? Did you all suffer from that at the beginning of this process?
So I think everyone else might have a little bit. I have been giving presentations. One of my big things that I do is scientific outreach. And I think one of my biggest scientific outreach was talking in front of a panel at PAX about science in video games.
Sure.
And that video has been seen by thousands and thousands of people. And that's kind of at the point in my life I went, okay, even if I screw up on stage and say the wrong thing, no one cares. So at this point, I'll talk to anyone. I'll throw out an email. If someone doesn't want to get back to you, they won't. If they do, they will. So it never hurts. That imposter syndrome is definitely a hump everyone has to get over. But it's very important, I think, to conquer that and not second guess yourself.
So you talked about how helpful the distributors were, and you were obviously able to find YouTube people, streamers that were helpful. Has this whole experience taught you that people are generally helpful with other creators?
Yeah, I think especially in the tabletop realm, people are very, very helpful. It's a still very niche hobby. So everyone in it that I have met and talked to has been very nice. I mean, there's always some people on like Reddit or the internet that'll get really upset about things and let me know. But overall, everyone that I've talked to, at least that's gotten back to me, has been helpful, even if it's a simple, I'm sorry, no.
Sure. I mean, that's great, right? Even as simple as I'm sorry, no is better than being ghosted, I think. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the game. Tell everybody the name of the game. I want to make sure we remember to do that. And what you think is really cool and unique about it. And what do you want to say most about your game?
Okay, so the game is called Acheron. And see, this is the problem. There's just so much I want to talk about. I think the focus, though, is on that classless system. So we've worked really hard to have characters all be different, all be free form. I have played dozens and dozens and dozens of characters, and I have not played the same one, even when I'm going for a similar build as others. And I think that's the big draw. Besides the lore, I think the classless progression is our big draw for sure. And then the lore is fairly expansive. We're probably going to have a 400-page book where a lot of that is devoted to lore. It's a pretty sizable world. We have 30 or 60 districts, which are essentially state-sized places. So we got to talk about all of those. We have a bunch of factions. We have a bunch of spells and abilities that all have flavor text. So it is a lot of fun. If you like things like SCP, Big Brother watching over your shoulder, blowing up city blocks with your mind, and summoning horrible demons, then that's the kind of stuff that we got.
I was reading some of the spells in like Insect Swarm, right? You crush a fistful of insects, and there's some flavor text in there and some descriptive text, and it's slightly different if you're a root or a tree or something like that. I loved that part of the game. It's I think even though this is the game I play the most, I think it's gotten a little generic, right? And I think Acheron is not going to suffer from being generic. So to me, that's a really big draw of the game.
Yeah, for sure. You want to make sure that everything feels like a lived-in world, and even the spells. All the spells we're trying to make incredibly different, very utilitarian in some cases, very specific in others, and even the schools. So we have 5 schools of magic. There's Arcane, which is your sort of controlling other people's magic and doing damage. We have Fey, which is tricking people and tripping them with invisible fairies that crush their toes, and Spirit, which is the crushing insects, a little bit of healing, the sort of support magic. Demonic, which is sucking the life force out of people, setting them on fire, and then Eldritch, which is breaking people mentally, emotionally, and psychically as much as possible.
I like that the schools are separate, right? At least it seemed that they are. So again, if you're doing this kind of school, you're doing this kind of school. You're not doing kind of all of the magic, and there really isn't a difference between one wizard and another wizard. It's clear that a character in your game is going to be very different from another character, even if they superficially might look the same before you look at the details.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we've strived for. And speaking of, until you look at the details, another thing we want to make sure is that the monsters, the different abilities, stuff can seem the same on the surface, and then that way you hear a story of, oh, this apartment building was burned down and they saw a couple people running away. It's like, okay, were those just arsonists? Were they mages? Were they mancers, which is our sort of sorcery abilities? And trying to do that for everything also. So it'll be a lot of fun for the investigation types.
Excuse me. One of the things I asked you to do, and I don't know if you did it, and if you didn't, we'll edit it out, is there another company product that you would recommend from a small creator?
Yes. So actually, this took a lot of thinking. So I pulled up 3 different products. So only one of them is out. The 2 others are Kickstarters that were successful, and I think they'll be really cool games. So the first one, and I don't know how small it is still because it seems to be the front runner in the solo RPG realm, is Ironsworn. I have not been able to play an actual game with multiple people at the table, but I've read through it and I've done some solo stuff, and it's just a really well put together, easy to add on and world build around game. So Ironsworn, I think, is great. The other one is Legends of Aveallen, so Avallen. It's kind of hard to Google because Legends of Aveallen will pop up every time.
Right.
And so that setting is, what if the Celtic peoples actually didn't get totally decimated by the Romans, and but the Romans still show up, and you got that conflict there. So I really enjoy that part of history. It's really sad that we don't have anything from the opposite Celtic side.
Right.
I enjoy exploring that sort of stuff. And the last one is Wild Sea, which is just an awesome concept of, there's been an overgrowth on the world. So you have these huge trees, and the canopy is so dense it can support these massive ships that just are kind of like giant chainsaws, I guess, that just churn through the tops of the trees to propel themselves around. So it's a very interesting setting, and has this kind of a like pirate sort of feeling to it. And all of the races are really interesting because you have got cactus people, fungus people, spider colonies that are technically one person. So that's another really interesting one to me.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look at all three of those. Actually, I've heard of Ironsworn. I haven't ever downloaded it or looked at it in detail, but I've definitely heard of that one. But the other two are new to me, so I'll have to look at those.